couple modern challenges with security these days. The first is for most system administrators, compliance and hardening is a recurring thing. You have many different systems, hundreds, thousands of different nodes. They may have different requirements for compliance. So you've got to go in, you've got to manually harden all these nodes based on a particular compliance framework, whether that's DISA STIG, whether that's CIS, PCI, DSS, HIPAA, SOC Type 2, 800-171. It is a word salad of different configurations you have to set all these nodes up to. So you have to, once you've provisioned your nodes, you've got to configure them and then keep them configured. And that is an ongoing challenge, very time intensive. It's also very error prone because each configuration for your service can drift over time. So security teams spend immense amounts of time both setting up nodes initially with clean images to make sure that they are compliant. And then they have to spend time and tracking, making sure all of these nodes, once they're out in the wild, once they've been living for weeks or months, make sure the configuration doesn't drift. And then what's worse is regulations such as STIG or CIS, they can change every quarter. And now you've got to go back to all of your nodes, you've got to update your templates, then you've got to make sure they get all reapplied, and then you've got to debug all of those errors. It is an incredibly time-intensive process, both through initial setup and for the maintenance. Now, during that time, you also have all these nodes running. You have to start patching them because CVEs are coming out every day. CVEs are coming out faster than you can patch. Once the CVEs are recognized, the patch has to be made, which can take time. Once the patch is made, then you've got to wait and make sure you can actually go apply those patches. Depending on the size of your company or your company's rules, it may take days or weeks for you to actually absorb all these patches for outstanding CVEs, test them, validate them, stage them, and then deploy them. So you are sitting there with nodes that are exposed for days, weeks, or even months without protection for known CVEs. So what the result is you have inconsistent security while you're constantly juggling, trying to keep up security for your compliance team. Your CISO isn't getting on your case about being out of compliance while you're trying to make sure that the CVEs are getting patched. And at the same time, maybe you'd like to actually be secure. Because for the moment, you're just saying, hi, I got to check these boxes and make sure that this scan, my Nessus scan or my Qualys scan or my Wiz scan, I want to make sure that's clean. I want to make sure that I'm checking off the boxes so we're staying compliant. And then later, once you have all your free time from doing all this, maybe I can take a look at how to make my system more secure. Now, you've got multiple teams that are in conflict here. On your application development side, your product teams are developing new features. They want instances up. They want to be able to deploy things as quickly as possible. They want speed, and they want to be able to be as flexible as possible. That's in conflict with locking down your systems. Over on the infrastructure side, they want it to be as easy as possible. They're spinning up all these images. They're keeping them all patched. They do not want to deal with really complicated setups or restrictions. While security's over here saying, hey, like the CRA just came out in EU, or we have some new regulation. The Executive Order 140028, we've got all these new requirements you have to meet. So you've got to make sure you are patching all your CVEs. You've got to make sure that you're staying in compliant. There's no configuration drift. And so these teams end up being in conflict at all times. So how do we resolve this? Well, there's two ways that CIQ proposes. One is the gold image operating system that is already pre-configured for both security, compliance, and detection. It's a gold image you can start with that just starts compliant and stays compliant. And then you can just roll it out every new version, and your configuration drift is minimized. And on top of just basic reactive CVE patching, you have your configuration, whether it's for CIS, whether it's for STIG, whether it's for PCI DSS. And we add on some secret sauce security features that go beyond basic enterprise Linux that I'll get to in a moment. Now, you've got your one node, you've got your one system, and it's set up, that's great. Now you've got to do this across all of your instances. That's where Ascender comes into play. Ascender is a fork of AWX, which has languished for a while. We've taken AWX, we've forked it, we've patched the CVEs, we've fixed a bunch of bugs, and it's available in the open source for anyone to use for managing clusters at scale using Ansible. And then if you need additional features, that's where Enterprise Pro comes into play. Let's talk about RLC Hardened. So if you're not familiar with Rocky Linux from CIQ, it starts with the open source Rocky Linux base. Rocky Linux is a rebuild of Red Hat Linux. Rocky Linux System CIQ is our enterprise grade variant. We add features and support. Rocky Linux from CIQ Hardened goes a step further. The first thing we do with Rocky Linux from CIQ Hardened is we add on a number of key feature security packages that either override existing packages with more secure versions or add in extra packages that do more for security than you get out of your base Rocky Linux or base enterprise Linux. The core packages that have some of the greatest threat area, greatest threat surface area, particularly OpenSSH, glibc, memory allocation, those get hardened out of the box. We are closing off entire CWEs, or at least severely mitigating common attack vectors out of the box with either hardened versions of our packages or extra packages which take into account current limitations. Your general purpose enterprise Linux operating system is designed to be as flexible as possible. That means out of the box, it's not making the hard trade-offs for security that teams have to make every day. So Rocky Linux from CIQ Hardened is a somewhat opinionated variant to say, these are the things that most people are not going to use, and these are the ones that are most vulnerable. And we're going to cut those off from the beginning. We don't need all these extra services sitting around. We don't need all these openings, these configuration loopholes sitting. We're just going to close them off for you while still giving you the ability to control and tune based on your own needs. Now, this gives you a secure baseline so that you have that gold image you can roll out and you're knowing out of the box, it's secure, it's patched, and you can make your modifications from there. There are 6 main package changes in Rocky RLC Hardened today. The first is hardening of glibc. This prevents a number of privilege escalations that are inherent to the open source version. We have swapped out the typical enterprise Linux packages for password QC and YesCrypt. This is simultaneously increasing the number of passwords that are considered. It opens up user experience. So more passwords are actually available to use. It's a much better user experience, but it actually prevents more weak passwords overall while having a better user experience. And it hashes it far more securely, which you'll see here in a moment. OpenSSH, very common attack vector. There's a number of surface exposures, most recently the XZ backdoor. The hardening we have done on OpenSSH would have prevented, or at least primarily mitigated, that exposure, that backdoor that was coming in from XZ. Now, this is where we get into the extra packages that we're adding to RLC-H. So LKRG is a very interesting one. It was developed by a director of offensive security over at NVIDIA. Over the past 7 or 8 years, Solar Designer over at CIQ, who is well known in the offensive security community, has worked with them to turn this into a mature product. It is effectively taking a snapshot of the kernel and catching if there's any modifications to it at that case in point. If it does detect any sort of tampering, it gives you options to just report that up, and that can be ingested by an SIEM, so you get an alert if there's any risk of tampering, or it can just panic and shut it down to prevent that tampering from potentially allowing a attacker who was able to get in to actually take any action. One thing to always remember is there's no such thing as secure. There is only more secure. And while you do as much as you can with prevention, at the end of the day, you're going to need detection. The second best thing after preventing something is detecting when it does happen so you can take action and prevent it. Now, in addition to that, we have hardened memory allocation, of course, one of the most common areas with use after free attacks. That hardening malloc does a significant amount to mitigate those types of attacks. And the control package is interesting. Well, it doesn't, it gives you the ability to maintain these configurations across reboots. And so you're always ensure that once you've tuned your security settings, they're going to stay. Now, all of these can be tuned. Security is generally a trade-off. So if you want the most secure, you'll be able to tune it to the most secure. But if you need it a little bit lighter because your users need a bit more flexibility, you can tune it down while still getting a lion's share of the benefits. Now, this is where we take a look at how RLC-H is actually preventing things from happening. So I can talk about this, but it's a lot more interesting to just see what happens. So we have a blog post here where you can see in real time, Solar Designer, our head security researcher, going through, he's SSHing into a Rocky Linux general purpose, like bare metal 9.6 instance. And he is doing a dump of passwords from Etsy Shadow. Now you can see it takes a couple of attempts, but boom, that's done. This is a base 9.6. It just runs and it's able to spit them out. Now, after we get these passwords, they're gonna come out hashed. What we're gonna be able to see is he's dumping these passwords out. He's gonna be able to use John the Ripper, and he's gonna be able to decrypt these root passwords for this user. This is something that can be done today, right now, an exploit that can be used on Rocky Linux and RHEL 9.6. Let's take a look. I'll let Solar show you what he can do here. Let's see. Yep, it's almost done. There you go. You've got your passwords. They're hashed. This is a root and user password dump from Etsy Shadow. They're hashed, so you can't do anything about it, right? Well, actually, now that you have these hashed passwords, you can use John the Ripper. Because of the hashing that is currently default in Enterprise Linux, they're not actually as secure as you might think. One of the reasons we brought in YesCrypt and QC is that they make the hashing far more secure. Solar has found that there are, I think, upwards of 20 times longer to crack these passwords than what is out of the box hashing. So let him show you how it goes. Show you what this is the device that's being used to run John the Ripper. So this is something anyone can access. It's nothing fancy. It's a little fancy. So boom, that's cracked. Full access is the password for the root user. Secret 666, the password for the user. This is something you can do today on any Enterprise Linux 9.6 because the CVE exploit has not been patched and the hashing of the passwords is not nearly as secure as it should be. So getting back, just to reiterate, the changes that we've made here in RLC Hardened. One, the password hashing with YesCrypt is far more secure. And you'll see that in the next slide. That was John the Ripper with the basic RLC. Now we're going to do it from Rocky Linux from CIQ. Let's see. Where's it didn't load. My internet isn't good. Well, I'm going to skip that because I can't show you. But if you try to run that same thing in RLC Hardened, the hardening that we've added, first of all, prevents that system core dump from even being possible. So you would not be able to get the hashes in the first place. And second of all, if you were able to get the hashes for any reason, the YesCrypt is a much more rigorous hashing. And so John the Ripper cannot crack it with that same set of hardware. Please check out the blog that goes into far more detail about how this is being accomplished. And this is just an example of the type of CWE, that entire CWEs that are being either mitigated or eliminated. It does not mean you don't have to patch the CVE. You still need to patch the CVE, but it buys you time for that delay between when that CVE and that exploit is seen and when that patch can actually get deployed across your entire system. So, basically, that's the security side. And the security side is really interesting because this is only the beginning of our journey. And this has been a multi-decade journey because this all started. Solar Designer is the lead architect for RLC-H. And he started back in the 90s with John the Ripper, which anyone in offensive security may know. Very common password cracking tool. Even I think some of the student cluster is using it to showcase offensive password cracking. But he also opened OpenWall, which you may be familiar with in the security space, which is a very, very famous Linux variant that was considered very secure for the time, or one of the most secure, and currently is a nexus for security discussion. So this is his vision of taking all of he's learned about security over the years, applying it to an enterprise Linux system, which balances the need for user flexibility and function with the need for security. And we have much more on the roadmap of additional security features we're going to be adding over time. Now, while this is all great for security, and we would like security to be the most important thing, in reality, when we're going to do procurement, when we're choosing our operating system, we have to be compliant to keep everyone happy. And we have to make sure we're not hitting performance too much. With RLC Hardened, compliance is not an issue. CIQ has FIPS 140-3 compliant modules, which are going through NIST certification right now. We expect most to hit CMVP soon. And then on top of that, we have the pre-stigged, pre-hardened images available, along with Ansible playbooks for you to apply any of the particular SCAP playbooks that you're looking for. Now, alongside that, you're like, there's a question about performance. Let's see if I have my performance side somewhere. I don't have it. Anyway, short answer is those there is some trade-off on performance with these security packages. It's inherent. The moment you add some security, there's a trade-off. But the security trade-off for all of that security can be as minimal as 2.5% for very high levels of security coming from LKRG and Hardened malloc. And if you tune it down a bit, it still keeps some of the security benefits, but there's negligible or effectively zero performance impact. So you're not going to be frustrating too many people. And at 2.5%, it's not noticeable for the benefits you get from the security. In short, we're seeing broadly that security in generic Linux, general purpose enterprise Linux, is just not enough. We're giving you the compliance out of the box so that you can go through procurement, so you can keep your audits, make your audits simple. But we're also adding that preventative and detecting security layer that just doesn't really exist out of the box with enterprise Linux. You can get some of these things piecemeal from in other software vendors, but generally you're not going to get that baked in from day one in the golden image. Now, with all of that being said, great, I've got the image. Now we need to, again, deploy it across my entire infrastructure. And again, this is where Ascender, you may be familiar with Ansible Automation Platform with AWX or Ansible Tower. Ascender Pro is a fork based on an open source fork of AWX. We've enhanced it, we've remediated CVEs, and then we built a pro version on top of it. So as you can see, it starts with AWX, which is up there in the cloud, a little bit stagnant. Ascender adds on all of the updates for CVEs and patches and some additional support, makes it easier to install, much easier to install. And then with Ascender Pro, we add on internal tools, including Ledger Pro, which adds compliance auditability, which just doesn't exist in these other tools. So you end up with a ledger of every action being taken that you can use for simplifying your reporting, which leaves you with far fewer headaches when it comes time to prove that all of your systems are actually compliant. That is, of course, backed by CIQ's support. So if you need white glove for installation, or you have any additional bugs or fixes needed, if you want pre-made playbooks or Ansible playbooks that are out of the box ready to go, if you need event-driven Ansible, if you need an Ansible registry, all of that comes out of the box with Ascender Pro. However, if you're using AWX today and you're looking for an option, I do highly recommend grabbing Ascender, taking it for a spin. I think you'll be happy. Overall, I'm not going to get too deep in Ascender Pro. Ascender Pro basically does, it's at a high level. It is Ansible with a lot of enterprise features baked on top. It gives you a GUI for Ansible. It allows you to bundle your playbooks. It gives you RBAC and user access control. It allows you to, with a GUI, manage your playbooks, your Ansible playbooks, add variables, and tweak them. So make sure you deploy write one playbook and deploy it across multiple servers without having to craft custom playbooks for each one or each cluster. And it gives you a significant amount of added visibility with graphs and observability across your network. So between Ascender Pro and Rocket Linux from CIQ Hardened, you are saving an immense amount of time configuring from the startup. You're saving time for these ongoing maintenance. And there's added benefits from code level changes we've made to both increase the security of Rocky Linux, enterprise Linux overall, and make the enterprise automation experience significantly more cutting edge and modern for the system administrator who'd like to reduce their overall number of headaches, whether those headaches come from compliance or whether those headaches come from security. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Ascender is open source.
Yes.
Who is the data?
Yes, Ascender is open source. We're continuing to, we didn't just fork AWX, but with the situation with AWX being stagnant for over a year, there's many customers who are in a position where they don't have many options. There's outstanding CVEs in the libraries. We have patched every single CVE, and we're continuing to patch CVEs for Ascender. Again, the installer is out there. And then not all of the features we're developing are going to go into the Pro version. Some will be added back into Ascender. And we're looking to get more of the community aware that, hey, if you're using AWX today and you'd like something that's maintained and supported, the free open source Ascender is available for you.